Hello and welcome to the Fan Reach podcast. I'm your host, Christy King. Today, Kenyon, Rasheed, Brian Jones, and I speak with Renier Steyn about touchless technologies in sports arenas. Prepare yourself for an informative but wild ride with Radio Ren.
I'm interested to hear what your company is and why it is that touchless technologies are so much at the forefront right now.
Right. Well, let me, my name is Renier Steyn, and I'm the president of Axess America. So Axess is a Austrian-based technology company, and we're about 20 years old now. But the company sort of grew out of contactless back in the day when they started around ski. Ski's been doing contactless for many years, and the favorite pastime of Austrians is skiing. And so we started to work on RFID contactless. So you could have the ticket in your Gore-Tex glove or in your jacket, and you just ski up. And it's sort of frictionless, if you like, and you off you go up the mountains and enjoy your day. So that's sort of where it was. And back in the day, we implemented it even in the Swatch watch. So you would buy a Swatch watch with an RFID ticket in it, and you would scan and use your watch. It was super cool, and people liked the idea. So the company grew out of that, and slowly what happened was we started working with a lot of sports teams because they saw the technology complementary to what the sports venues wanted to do. So as a result, we started working with a bunch of the Bundesliga teams for their soccer stadiums, and in Europe we missed what I would call the handheld revolution. In Europe, what happened was we went from ticket takers who used to grab your ticket, tear it, and off you go, straight into access control, where you would scan it at a reader, the turnstile would open, and in you go. And a lot of that was sort of driven from, specifically in Europe, they had a lot of those disasters with the stadiums, where the stadiums were overoccupied, all right? And there was no way to track how many people would come into the stadium. So the stands sort of collapsed, and they had these disasters around too many people in the stadium. And ultimately, if you're tearing tickets, how do you know how many people are in your building? And there's counterfeits and there's fraud and stuff like that. So what happened was they effectively digitized that whole process. And in Europe, they have this thing called the Green Guide, and the Green Guide is a Bible for stadiums to say, hey, moving forward, for you to be able to hold fans, is you need to know exactly how many people are in at any time. And stuff like that. So automating that whole process, they just said, look, handhelds are labor intensive. We just want people to self-scan and things like that. So a phone started ringing, and a bunch of the sports teams phoning saying, hey, post-COVID, how do we enter into a contactless environment? And we sort of said, well, yeah, part of that fan journey is going to be contactless entry, self-scan. People want to, scan yourself in, have social distancing with the stewards. Those stewards are now going to take on a different role. They're not going to be scanning tickets, but more, help people to their seats, tell them where the concession stands are and stuff like that. So fortunately, in sort of May, the phone started ringing, and since then we've been, it's been going crazy with so many installations right now. It's bizarre. Yeah. So
it's safe to say attitudes have changed since you first touched down in Denver and Williamsburg as far as going touchless.
Yes, they have. They have definitely changed, and so, Brian, I always tell people I'm a digital storyteller for sports teams, right? Because my whole thing when I talk to people is not just explaining to them about what my technologies can do, but really that whole fan journey from the home all the way through, and we form part of that customer journey, right? And as a result, when we look at the mobile app space, people purchasing their tickets, a higher percentage of people are purchasing those tickets through the app, purchasing their parking through the app, and then from the driveway they get to the facility, and they scan through, and then we have the contactless entry and stuff like that. And then, leading into that, now we're seeing, contactless payment, the ability to have your wallet on your phone, scan and make your payments. And also, obviously in-seat ordering and stuff like that. So we've seen, that we're part of that chain, all right? But when we talk to our clients, it's really talking about what's contactless doing and how is that doing moving forward.
Yeah, it's about health and safety as we move forward from this COVID environment. But I want to ask you about your early days, because we always speak about the fan journey, holding that customer's hand as soon as they hit the parking, as you just alluded to, and throughout entry into the stadium and while they're in the stadium, and even once that event has concluded, following that customer, that fan throughout that entire process. How have you seen a shift from your early days of developing fan loyalty programs to where we sit today?
Yeah, it's interesting. That whole thing has evolved. When I first started, it was very browser based. By what I mean by that, it was people used to go to their computer, log in and do stuff. Now what we're seeing is more of that being a surprise and delight type of thing. So of course, everything that, we've been talking about is really about big data. What is everybody, whether it's your ticketing companies are trying to make sure that Kenyon and Brian have their individual tickets so they know who they are when they come in, all right? Because they want to own the persona, okay, an individual persona. Yeah. And then from there, when are they coming into the facility? And then what are they buying? And really the idea then is to make that sticky for them. So that's now become more of an app-driven program, right? Where we break a geofence. We know that you're at the facility. We can now message you, but we're also capturing that data now. And that data is really talking about that 360-degree view of the fan, that I message Brian properly and say, hey, we've got a special on XL shirts, and not small, because we know that you're buying XL shirts or whatever that is. So this whole thing is now becoming really around big data and trying to make sure that we're getting the right information, but it's all been driven from the app.
Let's say that I am a client and I'm rushing to go cashless. Mm-hmm. I know very little about the market. I just know I have to do this because it's something. Where do I start?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Kenyon. In terms of where to start, it comes into a couple of things. One, the landscape is very disparate when it comes to the point of sale vendors that are in each facility, right? So you've got numerous point of sale vendors that are working within their stack, okay? We then have companies that are delivering the wallet experience, okay, for that contactless, which will then, be an SDK that they could drop into that. So what I always say to people when they're looking to get into the contactless space is the thing that is the one common denominator is really the credit card processing machines, right? Mm. And I think, for us, I think the ability to take your current Visa, MasterCard that's in your wallet, right, and sign that also to your member card, that is one transaction that you're tapping at that time. Because there are people out there, we're tech people potentially, maybe we understand it. So when I get to a team, I download the app and I do everything I can. But I don't think that people think about that fan that is, not tech savvy. He's a 70-year-old man, and that's the challenge that we're seeing from my lens. I see that a lot of people are looking at the technologies based on how they use technology, right? And we've got to make it a lot easier for the majority of the fans that aren't tech savvy, right? And I think by just, the Apple Wallet and like, this is what I would say is the fortunate thing about COVID, if there is an upside, is the fact that a lot of people have now learned how to utilize apps to buy through DoorDash or all of these solutions, which I think is going to help the people, companies like yourselves, like FanReach, in terms of adoption, because now people are not as scared as that for that technology.
I'm also interested in, since we're on the subject of COVID, and obviously that spurred a lot of changes. And in most cases, I think what I keep hearing is that it's not that there's necessarily amazing new things that happen to a lot of businesses in media and technology and other places. It's that it's sped everything up for an average of about 3 years. So I'm curious to talk specifically some more about some of the applications you were discussing of a sort of touchless everything, right? Because that has health implications. So but that's also touches on what you're talking about making things easier. People can't be afraid of technology if you're going to force them to use the technology to do everything from find a seat to buy a hot dog to, get tickets to find their car again. So talk some more about what you guys are doing and what you're seeing as far as touchless technology. And there are these arenas really going to try to get to the point where you literally touch nothing in order to.
Yeah, so there's a couple of really cool things, and I've and this is just my view, and I'm sort of hot on a few things, but we're doing 2 pilots, with one with the LAFC around with Clear, where it's facial recognition. So we're going to just walk up, it's going to recognize me, and I may have Brian and Kenyon with me. I have their 2 tickets. You'll just wave your palm on the reader, and you'll know that the other 2 folks are with me. I'll walk through, and then I'm going to go and buy my hot dog, my beer. It's even going to then connect to age verification to say that, yep, Ren is over 21. He can, purchase, and away we go. So that's stuff that we're doing right now. And that's sort of projects that are coming. We're doing another one with the new Columbus Crew project with a company called Wicked, which is also around facial recognition. And I think that that's sort of, there are some limitations, and we have another very large partner we're working with in the Seattle area that's also looking to do some different types of technologies around Palm, but I think that's really the new wave. The issue with that is around data protection, are you comfortable in doing that kind of thing? But what takes it now, over at the Sacramento Kings, they're working with a company called Zippin, which is that grab and go sort of technology where you scan your ticket, your credit card's assigned to that QR code or that NFC token. You walk in, you take your bag of crisps, you take your Coke, and you just walk out. It's got cameras, and it's sensing you wherever you go and whatever you take out. So it's a little bit like, I think, the Amazon Go type of philosophy. So there are a bunch of teams right now that are implementing that as well. So, that is interesting technology. I think it's really gonna go a long way. It's a little expensive at the moment because you have to put cameras in and sensors. So there's quite a lot of that. But there are some, they're like I mentioned, Sacramento Kings, very forward-thinking organization, and they've just implemented that. So really, we're talking in the end about making this as frictionless as possible, and just getting people in and out and let them enjoy the game. That's specifically where they're trying to get to.
From a privacy standpoint, how do you allay any of the fears? Okay, Big Brother's following me throughout this arena, because you just mentioned it earlier about older patrons and how they're not so keen and open to technology being all up in their business.
Yeah. So Brian, here's the deal. I think what we're saying is choice. If you want to do facial, you're going to be that guy that's going to do facial. If you want your traditional ticket that's a QR code on your phone, or you want to pay the traditional way with and you don't want to go in that grab and go, and you want to stand in a line and get your, get your food or get your drink, and you see that other place, people are just walking in and out. I think really we come down to choice, because ultimately, yes, there is a lot of trepidation with people that say, oh yeah, we're now gonna, have all of this data about me. So I do think that it's gonna be around choice. And what the teams are saying is, hey, scan your traditional ticket, buy your stuff in the traditional way, but if you wanna have a better experience and you're happy with this tech, off you go. I think that's how it's going to play out.
And of course, the teams would rather they pick the latter, because one, they have made these expenditures for this new wave technology, and two, it's going to assist in their ability to follow you throughout your journey during their event.
Well, and I think just like we talked about earlier, I think the adoption of DoorDash, and the way that younger people are using apps now is what teams and venues are looking at. I hate to say it, but we're old heads. We don't matter much.
Yeah.
To them.
Kenyon, that's why you see the NFL signing a huge deal with Amazon, because they've
Yeah,
got to go where the new fans are watching.
It's just an evolution, and just like you said, if I'm standing in a concession line and I'm watching people get their food in and out by just walking in, and I'm gonna be like, well, what are they using? Because I don't like standing in this line. Right. So, but that might be the way that you create kind of this paradigm shift. I know when the Falcons decided to go cashless, it was a 2-year discussion around, well, what do we do with our cash customers, right? Are we alienate them by making this a cashless venue? And so they put reverse ATMs throughout the stadium. So if you do come in cash, you can convert it to your mobile wallet, to a gift card. So you want to make sure that those transitional pieces are in place. But we think eventually the way that the stadiums and the venues are being built, that it's this curated Amazon experience that everybody wants, and we use it at our home. So why wouldn't we want the same experience when we go to a ball game?
Right. And I think you're good point. I'd love to see it in 10 years time, how it's going to look, right? Because if you just look at the past 10 years, how things have accelerated, and how tech is, how we use it. Even me, I don't go on my iPhone and look at how much FaceTime I've used, because it's like, it blows my mind, right? I'm like, this is not cool, right? But it's a fact of life, right? But as the new fans come through, it's, they're adopting technology way easier than anybody could imagine. They grow up with it.
And I think they are willing to give up a bit of their privacy for convenience. I think they polled, I think Cantor did a study where they did poll sports fans about how much data and privacy would they willing to give up. And I think 80% of them said, for the right curated experiences, I would be willing to share the data, my data with the team. So I think the way that we see it, I think sports is a little different, because sports fans like to be identified with those teams, and they want you to know that they're in the stadium and that they're going to games and things like that. So I think it's a little different environment than traditional retail, but I think we are seeing a movement toward teams understanding that they need to pull these curated experiences together for them in order to maintain capacity and get them back in the seats. Because I don't know about you guys, but watching games at home is a pretty good experience these days.
I dig it. Unless I can helicopter in and helicopter out.
Which as we get older, right? We're weighing, well, let's see, that's an hour and a half drive. I'm be in traffic for 2.5 hours. That's my whole Sunday. By the time I get home, it's Monday, time to go back to work again. I think I'll just sit here and hit the clip.
Exactly. And I'm with you, especially when you're driving to some of these teams that have a really bad parking experience and stuff like that. You're like, no, I'm going to stay at home. So I think you're right. I think a lot of that, and that's a lot of the challenge with a lot of the leagues is to, if you want to come and have a look at some of these people's basements, or their man cave, it's insane. They've got kids in there. They've got 5 TVs all over the place. You come down there, you're with your buddies. And I think that's a lot of what, the talk we're seeing with a lot of the teams is like, how do they manage the man caves? Because these man caves, especially now with COVID, people are getting, of course, there's nothing better than that in-game experience and the, testosterone you get when your team scores a touchdown or something like that. That's very, very cool. But to your point, Kenyon, I sit and I go, I just can't be bothered, man. I'll just sit here and I don't have a 2.5 hour journey to get there. So there is a lot, and that's what a lot of these teams are fighting with. Is that, but I will tell you that I've spoken to a lot of teams, and since COVID, they're oversubscribed with their season pass sales. season ticket sales, right?
Yep.
So there is that.
Basements at this point, they're sick of their basements.
Right.
Now we all trying to get out now,
Yeah.
just for some fresh air.
Yeah.
Because somebody invite me to anything now. By the way, if you guys are having anything, let me know. I will be there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
Anything, going into grocery stores and outing right now. Let me get dressed up to go down to the grocery store.
Yeah, I got to go to the UPS store after this, and I can't tell you how excited I am.
Be looking forward to things like that, right?
I'm like, I'm going to UPS store. That's going to be amazing. Yeah.
Boy.
Oh, wow. That's hilarious. Hey, Ren, let me ask you from a cost perspective, is Axess somewhat limited? You mentioned the cost of some of these different apparatuses that you're utilizing in the pilot programs. Does that limit you to professional sports organizations and teams? Because the collegiate teams really took a hit. And of course, they're not built like the professionals, and while they have a robust television package, it's nothing compared to the 32 teams at the NFL level or other professional leagues. So is that limited as far as who you can target?
Yeah, it does. Honestly, on the collegiate side, we hope to have to onboard 2 teams pretty soon. But it's just the way that the deals are structured with their ticketing partner that they get sort of credits to buy our technology. But if you're already in it and you're still in your ticket deal and you're halfway, well, you're just going to stick with what they have. So that does. Now, again, I think as what's the good thing is with COVID, I don't think there's going back. I think everybody's going to be more conscientious about contact. So contactless is really here to stay, whether we all get vaccinated and everything goes away. I think that's going to stay. So I think that it's going to be a journey. The good thing that I will tell you, and as a vendor, and you guys probably know that, the good thing about sport is it's a copycat league. I got successful because people would see that I'm posting stuff on LinkedIn or whatever, and they go, damn, why is that doing that? And then they go, hey, they're doing that. We should be doing that. And then I'm going to say, hey, so your buddy down at blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Oh, and then, that's sort of was also fun to watch in professional, because it's really, once one person is doing it, they go, oh, they're doing it. We got to get on that. We got to get on that.
Same on the field. You're exactly right. Copycat league, man. If this offense or defense concept is helping win championships, I need that on my side as well. We need to employ that strategy. So we've seen that.
So we're fortunate with that. So I anticipate that it's gonna continue, and hopefully on the collegiate side, that will sort of change. But I think it's going to be a slower. If I'm honest, it'll be a.
Well, to your point, maybe like a shared cost between the current vendors and the university, and that way they're able to roll out an additional product offering.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, along those same lines, you talked towards the beginning about like the use of clear and facial recognition technology and some of those other things, how that technology would work. So I'm listening to you and I'm hearing you say, I show up at the gate and I walk through and it has my face connected to something, and then I'm going into concessions and doing all this other stuff, and it's all recognizing me. What's going on behind the scenes? Did I have to download the app in the first place and connect all my stuff, and then the clear thing works? Or like how are teams walking people through the setup of all of this? Right.
So obviously within the facial, we gotta capture an image somewhere that we will hold, or not us, but the clear would hold. So effectively that happens through an app. So you download the app, you'll take your picture, you'll register your photo against all of that, okay? And so what happens is that doesn't go to the ticketing company, it sits within the database of, for example, within Clear, all right? So what happens is Clear matches Ren. When that happens, they make a call to Ticketmaster and say, they convert that into just a binary number, if you like, and they just make that call and say, hey, I've got 123, which is your ticketing identifier, and just makes a call and says, hey, I've got this person, has he got any tickets? They'll then send back and say, oh yeah, Kenyon is the primary. I'm going to ship over now with that. I'm going to send you all 4 tickets. Okay, so you have registered, you've captured your phone within app. Now I'm walking up to, you know, the clear device. It's going to take my picture. Obviously, it's then going to marry it and say, yeah, I know this person. Make that call, you know, and this is instantaneous, right? Make that call, come back, and then they will then say, yeah, I have these 4 tickets for Ren. Now at that stage, I have the ability to say, oh, it's just Ren and Kenyon at the game here. Brian and his buddies are still in the car park or driving. That stage, I'll tear those 2 tickets. I'll go in because we want to go, because maybe we could, you know, Kenyon hook me up with some super VVVIP experience, you know. And so I'm eager to get in. And the other guys are still making their way or visiting with buddies. So when they arrive, they will then have traditional tickets. We would have then sent them their tickets as a traditional, because they're not in that database. Ren was the person who was the primary in that database. And as I said in the beginning, what things are trying to get to, what the ticketing companies are trying to get to, is to understand every one of us. They want to know Brian. They want to know Christy. They want to know Kenyon. So somehow they want to use this technology to get that one, because that's a marketing channel for them, right? Because if it's just me and my 3 buddies, they don't know who they are. They can't market to them. So what people are really trying to get to, these ticketing companies are trying to get to, is that we can try and understand where these tickets are going and who's got them. Because now we know that Kenyon came to the game, and now we can start developing a profile on him. We can start capturing data on him. We can start messaging Kenyon to say, hey, come, I know you came with your buddy last time, but hey, why don't you come? We're gonna, you know, we can get you some tickets or something like that. That's really how that whole facial. And then when we come to the payment side, when you registered in the app, you would then assign that to your Visa card or your Amex, whatever that is. So then on the backside, they're doing all of that processing on the backside to say, hey, you know, and I think that's really where also the transactional data is going to start coming from.
I mean, if you're one of the 9 FanReach NFL teams per se, you don't have to download an additional app.
No, exactly. And I think that's the goal there. You know, the goal, whether that's, you know, this, whether it's even, you know, even sport betting, if you think about it, if I know who you are and I'm getting my, you know, my hands on all of your clients because I've downloaded those apps, now I can do my face, I can do a whole bunch of other things. So the goal within what FanReach has and that asset that they have is they can utilize and make it easier, because right now you have to go to a separate app. You go to maybe, you know, to a different vendor's app. We want that to be in one app. You know, we're all app fatigued. I mean, yesterday I actually went through all my apps and I was like, I got hundreds of apps, and then I started deleting these bloody things because I'm like, when did I ever do this thing? You know, emoji, whatever. And I'm like, oh, get rid of that thing, right? I loved that emoji thing when it first came, and I made my face and all of that. And then I was like, I don't know. I'm a little older now, and I need to move on from that. But that's the thing. And I think that's, you know, to your point, you know, it's that the teams also want one throat to choke application, right? They don't want to be able to go all these different solutions. And that's where FanReach, I think, can come in and play. And that can be, you know, something that makes it really sticky for the teams, because now, you know, you're already doing it with your phone, aren't you? I'm in, you know, it could be the same for your app. Oh yeah, I'm in, it captures my face, and that then leads it through to, you know, the facial recognition to my ticket, to all of those other pieces, you know?
So some of the Apple phones, and I think some of the Samsung phones, have facial recognition stuff built into it now. Is that recognized by like Clear and other systems, or is it all separate?
It's all separate. That's all proprietary. Yeah, the old app, I'm not sure that Apple will want to share anything with anybody.
That's true.
So that's the cool thing, is that, you know, you're going to go into your app and you're also going to launch that app, and that's the piece that's going to, you know, say, hey, I have that logic behind it, right? Also, you'll be opening everybody's apps. Yeah, we're like, oh, good, you know. So that's really how I believe to it. But again, you know, I'm just sort of a piece. It's the facial. We just partner with those other vendors as our technology, but they're really, you know, processing and doing all of that.
Sure, but it's like the thumb thing. So like the thumbprint technology on a lot of phones has been around forever, and everybody shares that now. 5-6 years later, it seems like it's no big deal. Where it'll probably take us all a little longer to get used to the face scanning. There's been too many movies where, you know, you scan your face, somebody dies.
Minority Report.
Yeah. I think that
where they recognize we really had a client called Olaru that had facial recognitions in the kiosk that could deliver ads basically on your facial profiling, right? And they originally targeted malls, and which was a bad business model, by the way, because who's paying for it? But
Yes.
one of the questions, and what we put 5 units in the Prudential Center to start trying to mine out where it could identify even the jersey you were wearing and start to deliver personalization there. So there, the thing about it is that there's all of these different technologies available, right? Clear, when we were at Global, had long conversations with Clear, and it makes sense, right? It's, if you're using this to bypass a line at the airport, why would I not use the same type of technology to bypass a line at a stadium, right?
Correct. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. So,
I think with the there was a very famous singer who had a tour a couple of years ago, and they put the facial technology in, like a billboard where you walk past and maybe advertising the show or something like that. But in fact, what was in there was the facial
AI.
recognition. And what they did was they scraped this famous celebrity's Facebook and social media with all the people that were, potential stalkers or not cool. And they would then they'd be looking for those people at the event, because those people could typically have an issue with the celebrity at the event.
BJ, you need one of them for your, BJ can use one of them on date night.
BJ, talk to me offline, brother. Talk to me offline.
Okay.
I'll get you hooked up.
You must need one of them on date night.
Yeah. We'll have the BJ cam. Oh, maybe that's not the best. Oh, we've got a lot of ideas coming here for you now.
You just took it too far, Red.
Listen, I'm going to call you Brian. I am not going to go down the other road. I am sorry. This is going to get edited. I can see that right now.
Oh, keep it in there, Christy. Do not edit it.
Oh, too funny.
Oh
Kenyon, it's all your fault.
I think it's fun. I'm telling you, because it's amazing how these technologies overlap, right? And how questions around privacy starts to take hold. But then you think in sports, where you have fan cams that you can snap pictures that show up on the board, and people tend to want to do that because they want to show everybody that I'm there, right?
Right.
So, but then if you say, okay, well, we have facial recognition, then the whole privacy issue is, well, how they're using it and so forth. So until we start to socialize, I think, how these technologies are being truly used and how data is truly being leveraged, then I think it's going to be stop and go in terms of just adoption, right? Because older folks like us, I think, are more leery of those types of technologies taking something that they're not allowed to take, right? But in reality, if companies are truly trying to deliver an experience, then I think those need to be outlined in statements. There needs to be policies around that. The teams could put into order. A lot of the guys, fans who are coming, are single ticket, single game purchasers that you don't have in your database, right? So,
but I also think that the cool thing about sport is that it is a trusted entity, right? You know what I'm saying? If I go down, some grocery store or some mall or something like that, I don't know. But I think there is a side to this, which is, hey, I'm this team's fan. They're going to do this. I'm trusting them, right? So I think it is an easier sell around that. I think it more comes, like you said, Kenyon, is you got certain demographic of people that are just, Big Brother is like watching everything I do, which, by the way, it is, and you don't need facial recognition because everything now is being tracked, on your phone, on all of these different things. They know exactly where you are, what you're doing.
Well, and this puts teams in an extremely highly risky position because they have truly outsourced these touch points. So I'm coming to the New York Yankees game. I don't know about Levy. I don't know about Legends. I don't know about Park Hub. I don't know about Ticketmaster. All I know is I'm coming to a Yankee game. What are the Yankees doing with my data? Well, right now, the Yankees pretty much may not be getting all of your data because it's going to your Ticketmasters, it's going to your Fanatics, it's going to, and then it's trying to be reconciled at the top for the Yankees. But at the end of the day, that's your brand.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if you are truly trying to protect your brand, then you need to have more control and more sight lines into the touch points that you've outsourced to vendors for the last 30 years, because that was the way the business model worked 30 years ago, 20 years
Yep.
ago. Now, teams are now starting to understand to develop curated experiences. I can't rely on Ticketmaster just in what they're doing. They're running their own company. They're trying to pull data for their company.
Yes. Yep.
So how do I, because that's my customer, right? At the end of the day, it's not a Ticketmaster customer. It's not a Fanatics customer. It's a Yankee customer. So how do I pull and protect myself should something happen around data privacy if I'm the New York Yankees, when I've outsourced it to these third parties? That to me is the next level of this discussion.
And I think that it is changing, to your point, Kenyon, sort of even 5 years ago, when people were buying point of sale, food and beverage point of sale, it was really left to the concessionaire. They would go and they say, oh, we're going to use this, and away you go, right? The team's getting their, revenue on the backside and stuff like that. What I've noticed in the last 5 years is that the teams are now getting involved in selection of that vendor, that technology, because now it's like, to your point, we want to try and find out how we can control this, because they want to have those connections to the point of sale. They want to get that data that, that they don't have the siloed vendors and stuff like that. So I think it is changing. There's still a way to go, to get there, but you've got, it's a true point.
I'm stop you right there, because we've talked about this a couple times. What do you have a sense of what you say we're getting there? What is the holdup? Is it just simply like everything else? There's just contracts in place that are still running out, or is there a technical or cultural issue that's stopping these kind of wholesale data exchange changes?
I think in the main, they are there. What I've seen, because a lot of these customers are building these these data lakes where they're trying to put all of that's their data, and the contracts that I'm seeing, certainly when I do contracts with clients and I look at what they are, the first things I'm seeing now, which I didn't see 5 years ago, is what data are you storing? Where are you storing it? Et cetera, and Kenyon mentioned, for example, we have a team he just mentioned, and that part of their whole thing was, what are you storing and who are you giving it to, and what can we, how can we use that? And those agreements are changing, and some of them are still, still running, but a lot of those teams are now looking at it in a completely different way. So the contracts are structured differently to get that, so that they own that.
So it's not really a technology issue that's the holdup, as usual, really. For the last 30 years, I've been paying attention to the sports industry.
No, the technology is available.
Everybody does think it's a tech, but
the technology is available. It's just these legacy models that they keep holding on to. That's the issue.
So that's where a majority of our time is spent. It's not necessarily explaining technology. It's explaining how the technology disrupts the current model for the benefit of the client. And when I say client, the team, the league, the entity that is controlling that brand interest is our client. Now, we have to work and integrate and collaborate with vendors. FanReach is a vendor. Levy is a vendor. Legends is a vendor. Real Life is a vendor. It's Ticketmaster is a vendor. All of these vendors operate below the surface here. And so where I think becomes very difficult for teams and organizations that haven't been built traditionally like businesses is, who makes that decision? Where does that decision come from? The owner only has sight lines into, hey, how are we making money and how can I make my franchise more valuable? You have your marketing teams that are concentrated on marketing. Your digital marketing teams are concentrated on digital. Sometimes those are different individuals than who's in charge of operation at the venue. Then you have your hospitality companies on top of that, and your ticketing companies. And now you have gaming companies who, hey, I've got this little contest game I need to bring into the mix. And I was talking to marketing and they like it. So now we got to throw that into the system.
Right.
And so now all of this stuff is being thrown into the platform, and at no time did someone ask, who is it for? Because if you can't segment your audience to figure out the difference between me, BJ, and then my sons, because then why are we doing all of this?
Right. It's true.
So I always ask teams when they have, hey, did you see this company that we spoke with, and they're doing this and it's great, and my first question is, well, what is it for? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with the technology? Because if you mismanage expectations, which I'm pretty sure if you've been around this for the last 20 years, you'll see so many companies have come and gone.
Oh yeah, that is, and that's the funny thing is people think that it's sexy, which, it's great. And we get to go to games and get to deal with cool people and stuff like that, but, typically behind the scenes, it's not a space that pays a lot on the tech stack. If you compare it to the banking sector, the pharmaceutical sector, when I look at that, I'm just like, wow, I speak to colleagues that are in that space and I go, what do you, no, that would never work where we are, right?
That would never work.
It's like, hey, so listen, let me tell you something, Ren, we're going to do this deal and we're going to give you 4 season tickets as part. I'm like, I can't pay people with season tickets. I tried it. Didn't work. Didn't like it.
Shiny object, right?
Yeah.
Take a look at this nice shiny. You get cheerleaders. Well, cheerleaders doesn't really pay the bill, right?
Right.
And so
that's a conversation we have all the time.
It's every conversation.
Sports is not. It's a different animal, and you can't take this square peg and force it into this round hole if you don't understand their processes on this side. And you're coming from your traditional corporate background and traditional deal flow and sales cycle. No, it doesn't work with the teams and leagues.
Absolutely, I tell you, I've try to employ people and from outside of the industry, and they come into the industry and they try and sell. And after 6 months, I'm like, you don't understand. This is not how this works, right? Because they think it's like your traditional thing. My days are spent networking, talking to different people. And then I hear, oh, so-and-so. And then, you also hear so-and-so got this idea about, and you're like, where the hell did it come up? I don't know. So my days, they call me Radio Ren. They all phone me and go, Radio Ren, what have you heard? I'm like, listen, I heard this. All right, got you, right? And then off they go. It's wild. I mean, if I write a book about how I've had to do deals and what I've had to do, in terms of, just getting it to the finish line, it's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah. What you're outlining, Ren, is something we preach. We don't want to just come and sell you something. We don't want to be an expense. We want to be a resource. We want to be a partner. We want to collaborate with you. And that's exactly what you are conveying here.
Yeah, and the same like FanReach with Gabe was always what I found with them was never nickel and dime. So I'd be working with them and the client would go, hey, I've got this problem. What happened was we'd talk and I'd say, you know what, how do we fix this? Because we can get into this, competition now, who should what, and that can take a lot of energy and time for the same result, which is we're just going to have to do it for free. Okay. And so as a result, what I think is, and why I like that the partnership is just, hey, we understand it. We know the beast. It's not like I'm new into this thing, right? Let's go in, let's get it sorted out. And that in the upside, our first client was LAFC and Christian Lau down there is just a rock star. And, it's not that he just wants to work with a partner that values him and wants to say, hey, we're going to take care of you. And he doesn't, say, hey, he just says, people, I have a really good partner in this. They are this, you should speak to them, right? Yep. And then at that stage, it's obviously for us to walk it in. But that, now is a resource. So you do work hard because it's such an incestuous business, right? If you're selling parking, well, they're all in competition. If you're Disney and Universal, they don't hear about what's happening because they're in competition. But sports teams, you're a fan, of the Yankees. There's no competition. You don't care if you talk to the Mets because I ain't going to the Mets, right? Yeah. And so they do share a lot of information, and there's a good side and a bad side to that, right? If you're not doing a good job, well, you're going to get found out pretty quickly, right?
If you take the approach of what's best for the client, and be honest with what you have, not what you think you can build, but what you can deliver, and like you said, over deliver. Then it all works out. That's what we're trying to do on the FanReach side is let's partner with a payment company. Let's partner with, a data and analytics company. That's not what we do. It's not the business that we're in. So let's bring them together. Let's go in collectively and let's make it easier for these teams to start adopting these technologies and these business models to easily start implementing. So that's
and number one, listen and listen to what their needs are, and then align, with those objectives when you partner with, that payment piece or, this data analytics piece. You got to understand what the need is, and a lot of people don't understand it. Going back to our earlier point, Ren, about trying to force that square peg in a round hole. A lot of people just think there's a one size fits all. No, we've had talks with teams where they say, we got all this technology, we don't know how this shit works.
Yeah.
We got a ton of technology stacked on top of each other, all these different layers, but we don't know how to use it. You just drop it off and they're gone.
Brian, and the other thing I think for you guys, which is a little bit more complicated than on my side, because my decision makers are pretty, we know where they are, but you guys are playing in such a pond with so many different touch points. You got marketing, you got sponsorship, you got ticketing, you've got the IT.
And they don't talk to each other. No, just like the technology doesn't integrate. They don't. Marketing doesn't know what sponsorship or the digital creative team is doing. It's like, how the hell y'all in business?
Right. They didn't talk before COVID. Now they're at home. What's the chance there? Before they were in the same building, they didn't talk. Now they're on these Zoom meetings. Ain't gonna happen, right? It's gonna be even worse, right? But they don't talk, and it's when you look at that, sort of the process, it's very convoluted. There's a lot of different pieces you've got to try and understand. And
well, we like challenges.
Right. I can see that. Yeah, and you've got that.
Like mysteries, complete unknowns, things that are
we like challenges.
What was the quote I got the other day? I'll stand on a mountain of no's for one yes.
Yeah.
Are you a U.S. citizen?
I am now.
He's the only African American on this call.
I know that. You know what?
He's from South Africa.
I know.
True African American.
I'm telling you, I'm the only one. Right? Isn't that crazy?
That's a good one there. I love that.
God, that is the greatest quote I've ever heard.
I know. That's awesome.
Please save that for me. Just clip that piece. I want that. That's going to be because my signature in my email is always digital storyteller. And then I'm going to have that little video clip on below that. And by the way,
By the way, the brothers gave me some street cred. I'm the real African American.
Listen, this is going to Africa. I'm sending this to my buddies over in South Africa. As soon as they finish, send me this link. They are gonna go crazy.
Oh, awesome.
Amazing.
The 3 Africans were on this call. Can't believe it. Yeah. 3 African Americans. Oh, my wife's gonna freak. I hope she's not listening to me.
Yeah, I see you got the same problem I have too.
Yeah. I'm like, look at her. I better not get this in front of her. Can't believe you said that. Yeah.
I'm glad it ain't just me.
Brian and Kenyon said that. They said I'm part of the brotherhood.
Well, blame it on BJ. I tend to do that a lot on my calls.
Yeah. It's all BJ's fault.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that BJ cam over to you and we get that sorted out, my friend.
I like it. Well, on that note,
Chrissy's like, I don't know why I put all these people together. And supposed to be an hour, it turns into an hour and a half.
It's too easy with Radio Ren.
Yeah, Radio Ren on the call. No,
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
guys,
man.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And if you ever need some Rennie love, just give me a shout, man.
For sure.
Got it.
Thanks, Christy. Appreciate it.
Christy.
Thank you. Thanks.